Good evening, everybody. Welcome to all of you joining us for this calculator workshop, which essentially is the calculator which you have to use for the CFA program exam in all levels 1, 2, and 3 of that program exam. This is the official calculator. And my name is Peter Menzies, and I'll be hopefully giving you some information that you'll find useful as I join you here from London. I am a CFA program exam trainer for Fitch Learning, have been so for many years, and as a trainer, I sort of see what candidates generally struggle with regard to the calculator, and that's such a shame because of course the exam itself is time pressured, and if you don't know how to get the best out of the calculator, you can lose valuable time. So I hope you have a calculator, the Texas BA2, with you right now, so we can basically together go through the key functions, and hopefully I'll cover all your questions. If you have any questions, of course, you can put them through to us here at Fitch Learning, but hopefully you'll see all the main functionalities. So, first of all, just to show you setting up your calculator. Now, remember that in the program exam, you will not actually be able to borrow anybody else's calculator. So you've got to look after yours. You've got to make sure you know how to set it up and everything. It's going to be your responsibility to have that right. Now, the first thing, you can see we have a picture of the calculator in front of us there. The first thing is, in order to make sure you get the right level of accuracy from your calculations, I'm thinking about, I'm doing a calculation, say, duration or convexity in fixed income. Or I'm doing a calculation like interest rate parity in foreign exchange and economics. And I need to have at least 5 decimal places in order to have the right final answer. Otherwise, when I do multi-step calculations, if it's too small decimal place number, I will lose accuracy and I'll get just the wrong final answer. So I recommend that you use at least 5 decimal places for this one. Now, you start up by putting the calculator on. Not sure that's okay. And then you press the second button. Second button, which will give you access to the format function. So press the decimal point button down now, or format function. So second and format has been pressed, right? On screen, it should say decimal places equals. How many decimal places do you want to set it to? Now you can have as many as 9 effectively. I would recommend at least 5, as it says here. So if you want to put 5 and enter, that's fine. Do so, guys, there. And that's ensuring at least the basic level of accuracy of everything. Now I also want you to make sure that the mathematical setting is correct. What I'm talking about is if you were to do a calculation like this. Let's say I do I'll do 3 plus 2 times 5. Yeah, 3 plus 2 times 5. Now, in order to do this correctly according to the math, of course you have to do the multiplication first, and then you do the addition. So this should actually be 2 times 5 plus 3. That should give me 13. But if you were to do it according to the order of operations, the order in which you put things in, you've got 3 plus 2 is 5, times 5 would give you 25, of course. Now, the correct setting is what we call algebraic operating system. So what I want you guys, if you are already in the second format function, and you've got decimal places on screen, then just press the up arrow. Okay, just press the up arrow from where you are. And your calculator should either say chain, or it says AOS. Now we want you to be in AOS, which is the algebraic operating system. I do the computation in the order of the rules. Multiplication is done first, addition is done last. So AOS mode will give you 13 for that calculation. If in chain mode, it's just the order you type things in. And that way, you'll get 25 for that calculation. So we do not want, guys, chain, okay? If you're in chain, what you do, you press the second and you press the enter button. Yeah, you press the second and you press the enter button, and that should now adjust you to AOS. Once it's in AOS, you leave it there. Okay, guys, that's our key tip there. I mean, really, it's the only way to go, really. Now, if you want to, well, in terms of payments per year, the default setting for the calculator is 1 per year. And then if you want to override that for, more frequent payments, you just override. For payments per year, pressing the second button, and you're pressing the yield button, the IY, interest rate or yield, that automatically should say, second IOY automatically should say payments per year equals 1. Payments per year equals 1. If you want to change that, you can do so by overwriting at the appropriate time. By the way, to come out of these settings, you're pressing clear work just to come back out to a regular normal screen. Yeah. Now, when we are doing any discounting cash flows or compounding or discounting, we're using the third row of keys, the so-called time value of money buttons, TVM. Now, whenever you are wanting to do a new question, I'm going to clear out all of the TVM inputs that you've put in. How you do TVM inputs is to press the number first and then the corresponding key. We'll talk about that. When you want to clear that, you have to press the second button. So where's that? Second button's up here. And you have to press the last number in that row, which is FV. Second FV will ensure that you've cleared all the buttons. Okay, all the buttons are wiped, which of course is really essential when you're doing a new question. All right, guys, so I hope that makes sense, right? Just the basics of the calculator. Now, what I find a lot of people struggle with is that they're doing multi-step calculations and they are writing numbers down, not knowing that they can store numbers and recall those numbers when they need to. So again, I'm thinking of multi-step calculations like duration, convexity, and interest rate parity, and things like that. You need multi-steps. So the way to do it is to use the memory function. To show an example, let's do something simple. 2 plus was 3.5 does equal, indeed, 5.5. You should store it. Okay, here's the thing. I want you to press the STO button. Now, STO store is located to the left of the number 4. You see that? Now, you've got to choose one of the buttons from 0, digit 0, all the way to the number 9, right? So basically the digits, the number digits. You can store your number under any of those entries. Now, which you use is up to you. Okay. For example, here they say choose 1. You can choose number 1 to store your number. So STO and then press 1. 5 has now been stored and is assigned to button number 1. Now, having cleared the screen, so press CEC, it's now possible to recall that number by pressing. Now the RCL button is directly below the STO button, and again you press number 1, of course, and it then says, right, RCL 1, hopefully you're getting 5.5. Now, if you want to check what is in the memory buttons, you can also press the second button and the second mem, which is basically the digit 0 has that as its function. So if I press second mem, and you can see basically scrolling through, guys, M0 equals 0, for example. I press the up arrow, so if I press the down arrow, sorry, M1 equals 5.5, and so on and so forth. M2 equals, and M3 equals. You press the down arrows there, which is the top of the calculator, and you can scroll through all of the memory buttons up to number 9. So basically you've got 10 memory settings, and you can access what's in memory by pressing second memory. Also, it's possible to recall the last answer from a calculator by pressing the second button, and then the equal sign gives you access to the answer. So hopefully, again, guys, you get the 5.5. That's just a question about, how many decimal places are okay? Are 6 okay? How many decimal places are required for accurate results? In my opinion, it says 5 should be enough, but I use 9, and you'll always have enough accuracy if you're working to 9, right? So my opinion, use 9. 6 is certainly generally okay. I use 9. Now, in terms of the topics, some basic topics now, I'll show you guys how you can effectively move between effective and nominal rates. Basically simple and compound returns. Simple and compound. Nominal versus effective. Okay? Now, we've got some terminology to be careful with in the CFA program exam. Because nominal rates does mean simple, no compounding. Effective does mean compounding. So you'll see some information here, some examples on that. It says 8% paid 6 monthly, or 8% paid quarterly. Now, the 8% in this story is a nominal rate. The 8% is a simply annualized, okay, a simple annual rate. But how do you work out the EAR or the effective annual rate from that? So of course it says here, well, if you want the effective rate, which is also known as the effective annual rate, the compound rate, you take your nominal rate, which is written here as R. So let's do, so R is equal to decimal, of course, we're using for these things, isn't it? 0.08. And you'll have to then choose the number of periods. So N is the number of periods. We can choose, for example, 2 periods, or we can choose 4 periods. We're talking about semi-annual or quarterly, right? N is either 2 or 4. So the EAR can be calculated as either 1 plus 8% paid twice, and of course, basically half paid twice, basically, so 4% paid twice. Square that, and we can work out what the return is for the year. Or we can do it as 8% split 4 ways, and of course compounded then. The idea is that the interest earns interest on itself. The whole thing grows at that rate. And I think, as you can see here, the answers should come out to that. If you want to just check, even just manually. Right, we're just doing here 1 plus 0.08 divided by 2 squared minus 1. So, this is hopefully all okay. But this is manually doing it. So what? We can do this? Yeah, and we can also do it faster as well. So I'll show you guys a shortcut, in case you didn't know. This is the effective rate. And of course, the thing about the effective rate is, once you have it, you can use it to basically work out the end of year. If you want to say a present value of $100 is going to be put into a deposit account and earning, 8% paid 4 times across the year, what is the future value going to be at the end of the year? This is actually at time 1. PV at time 0. And the idea is I need 1 plus the effective annual rate to do it. 1 plus the EAR will do it, the compound rate. So indeed that's what this is. We know that that rate is, for 4 periods, 8.243%. So it's just saying, that is going to then, of course, give you $8.243 on top of 100. Now, how do we actually shortcut all that? I mean, we want to work it out quickly. We don't want to do it manually. So if you want to press, guys, the second button again. Now I want you to press the number 2. Okay, the number 2 gives you access to the icon function, which is interest rate conversion. Now, effective rates from nominal rates or vice versa. If you check it out, guys, second number 2, it says what nominal rate do you have, and that would be the simple annual one. So we can do the example 8% from before. Press the number 8, guys, and then press enter, okay? Enter your numbers into this function. Then you press the up arrow. And it says how many compounding periods per year are there? That's the key one. Periods per year. And of course, if you're doing the semi-example, then it's going to have to be, of course, 2. So we've got that. 2, enter, and then up arrow again. and it says effective. Effective means the EAR, the effective annual rate, compound rate. So you just press the compute button, which is the top left-hand corner. Does that come out okay? We know the answer is because we did it manually, but is that okay? 8.16? Right, and of course if you want to play around with that again, all you do, you could just effectively press the down arrow, and of course you could change the compounding periods, let's say to 4 now, and enter that. Of course that's our quarterly example. Then you press the up arrow again, and you say effect equals compute. What is that? Compute that, please. And on 4 periods a year, don't forget, of course, to enter that number. On 4 periods a year, of course, it now is 8.24, roughly. Okay, so, of course, this also allows you to compute the nominal rate if you have the effective, or to work at the compounding periods if you have nominal and effective. So there you go. That's the shortcut. Now, using the present value function. Basically using the time value of money. So what I want to just do is, let's just have a look at some questions which force us to use the third row of the calculator, the so-called TVM buttons. Now you can see, right, we've got a question here. We've got $2,000, which is into an account. It's going to earn 4% on a compound rate basis. So this is, effectively what you're earning per year, 4% per annum, and you've got 5 years. Before you start, remember the rule. Clear your third row by pressing the second button and the FV. Yeah? Clear the third row. Once you've got that. Now the rule is for TVM buttons, press the number first that you want and then press the corresponding TVM key. So you can see the TVM buttons are N, which stands for number of periods. Not number of periods in the year, but number of periods in total you're growing the money by. IY, of course, is for the actual rate, but it must be the rate that's being earned periodically. It must be the rate you're earning periodically. If that's annual, then that's annual. PV, of course, the present value of money. How much do you start with? Payment, well, that would be if there are any annuities. So any regular payments that are happening throughout the time frame. And then future value. Okay, so I'm sure you knew that, but the thing is, here we of course have got 5 years, so we'll write 5N, we're saying 4% IY, we're saying we're starting with 2,000, and there is 0, if you like, regular payments. There's one payment, there's no regular payments going on, 0. So throw that in the calculator, guys, and see what you get. Yeah, so 5N, 4IY, 2,000 PV. 0 payment. If you didn't have 0 on the payment, it would be 0 anyway, be default to 0, okay? Just the same. The future value, how about we can compare notes, guys? 2433.31. Now that's right. That's right. We could, of course, just done 2,000 multiplied by 4%. Power 5. We could have just done that manually. And by the way, if you want to access the powers button for the calculator, you just press the YX. Y to the X is the power button. You say Y to the X and 5, of course, for that. So you could have done it manually. But what sign are you getting for your calculator there? Note the signs. Is it negative? If so, why is it negative? The answer, guys, is because you have given the calculator a positive present value, and therefore it will give you the opposite sign for the future value. Basically, it's money in is one sign, and money out is another. So if you want to check, if you change the setting for the present value, all you do is overwrite it. So press 2,000 again. This time, press the plus minus button, which is below the number 3. And if you now do negative 2,000 as your present value, so negative 2,000, and you recompute the present value, the future value, sorry, you expect the sign to swap, and it should. It should have done that. Now you should have a positive future. So basics like that, I'm sure you know, but there you go. Got to make sure you know the basics. Now let's also check that you can do the other things. If you have, let's say, 5,000, which grows to a future target, yes, it says over 3 years, and they want to know what the rate is. So manually, I'm saying 5,000 grown by some unknown rate is leaving me with 5,798.47. The thing is, it says it's over 3 years, so I'm tempted to put 3 here. But then it says, no, it's a 6-monthly rate that we're thinking about. So actually, 3 years times 2. So let me rewrite that. It's actually 6 periods that I've got this rate for. And I'm trying to solve for the semi-rate. Now, of course, you could solve that manually yourself, couldn't you? But the calculator is easy, I think. Start by clearing the numbers from the previous example. Key thing, of course, 6n. And the present value I'll put as a negative. I like to think of it as an outflow. The future value then becomes, a positive. Still 0 on the payment, okay? And once you've got that in, compute your yield. So just chuck that through, see what you get. Let's compare notes there. The semi-rate, which grows 5,000 to 5,798. Yeah, how are we doing? Are we getting 2.5%. Now please note this 2.5%, if you've got that, is a semi-annual rate. It's a semi-percentage. So you would have thoughts about how you might want to annualize that. You could do it simply by just doubling it, or you can do an effective rate by squaring the compound factor 1.025. Okay? Now, once we have that, it says, well, what about working with the payment button? The payment button, guys, is regular payments paid over a period of time, which is also known as an annuity in the market. Of course, an annuity might seem like it's annual income, but really it's just periodic income. And the idea of it being ordinary is to say that it's paid at the end of each of the periods. Now, that is the default setting of the calculator. Okay, the calculator already is in that mode. So, let's say that you want to value a 3-year 5,000 annuity at 5%. Now, basically, 5K is being received, if you like, or paid to somebody at the end of each of the next 3 years, and they want us to work out the future value. So remember, you on your timeline, always going to draw a timeline with these things, is saying, well, how can I work out future value? Well, you could, of course, remember that the last payment in the ordinary is already a future value, and then all you have to do is compound the other ones, or grow them effectively by 5% to join them there. Now, that's long-winded, but yes, you could do that. What's a faster way? The faster way is just to say, well, I've got 3 years, I've got 5% as a factor, I've got a present value which we assume is 0, because you are effectively starting with nothing. Right? The PV is 0. The payment was 5,000, and then you compute. What is the future value? That's what it's doing, because it's growing the payments it needs to. Okay, so have a go, guys. 3N, 5IY, 0 payment. 0 payment. 0 PV, sorry. 5,000 payment. Compute FV. Now, yes, you'll get a negative answer, guys, if you have got a positive payment. It's the same idea that money in versus money out. Okay, don't worry, that's sort of irrelevant. But does that seem okay? Now, if you can work out future values, that's of course saying how much your money overall will be worth at the end. You can work out present values as well. How much is the product going to cost if you're going to buy this annuity which pays you this income stream? In this case, this is how pension plans work, how pension funds work out their benefit obligations. They say, we want to work out how much we're going to have to pay you. Let's say I have to pay somebody 5,000 for the next 3 years, and I want to know how much I have to buy, how much I have to pay for the lump sum today. So that's, of course, discounting or dividing everything by 5%. That'll tell me the cost of each of the individual, cash flows and that is a sum of money which I need to put forward today. Of course, fast in the calculator, just to go 3 periods, it's 5%. The payment is 5,000. And in this case, you'd put a 0 in for the future value because there is nothing left at the end of this product. Alternatively, this is the same, of course, product we were looking at earlier, just we're looking at the present value now. So you can discount your future value by 3 years. That 15,000 number we got, last example, we could just discount that by 3 years. Alternatively, we can do this directly. But you should, guys, now get 13,616.24. Now, of course, you think, well, this is ordinary annuities where payments are made at the end again. How would I tackle if it's made at a different time? Well, the only different time it can happen is if it's made at the beginning, which is called an annuity due. I'll talk to you about that in a second. We'll change the setting. But let's turn on. Let's have a look at this. It says an annuity due. Now, annuity due, they won't actually say in the CFA program exam that it's an annuity due. What they'll say is, well, have a look at this. You've got a 4-year, $1,000 annuity. The first payment is received today. That's the clincher. That's the clincher. On a timeline, which of course goes out to 4 years, the first payment is received today. If you like, it's received at the beginning of each of the next 4 years. So, begin at the beginning. Now, what you need to do is press the second button. Okay? Now press the PMT, payment button. And it should say on the screen that the calculator is in end mode. Right? That should be on the screen right now. Now I want you to change that by pressing second and enter. That should change it to BGN. Okay, now guys, BGN means we're ready for an annuity due. And by the way, to go back to the end mode, you just press second enter again. If you want to just check, you can scroll between the two now very easily. Second enter goes between begin to end to begin, right? But let's be in begin mode just for the time being, okay? Now if you're in begin mode, what I want you to do is to try the example which says, what is the present value? What is the PV of this product? So, right, ready for this? 4N. And do come out of the screen, guys, when you have got it in begin mode. Okay, just do come out of that function. Don't stay in that function. You'll see that BGN is on the screen in front of you while you're doing this question. So 4N, yes, discount factor 6. The payment 1,000 and 0 FV, and compute the present value. If you hadn't changed your setting, by the way, what you'd find is that the answer is smaller. The answer is smaller because all of the payments have been discounted by 1 period more if they're paid later, if you like. So the answer is 1 period small overall. In fact, in that case, you just grow the answer by 1 period of 6% and you'll get the right answer. But just so you can play around with this. But on begin mode, that's how you get in begin mode. But I recommend that you change your setting immediately after you do one of these questions, because most times the annuity or any cash flows are assumed to be paid at the end. So you want to go back to the end mode. Okay, everybody, so I hope that makes sense. Now, what I've got for you is a look at the cash flow function, which is so important for things like net present value, IRR. Just to say, I want you to always keep your calculator generally in the end mode. So if you haven't already, please guys just switch it back to end mode. So second payment and second enter, and just make sure we're back on with the end mode for cash flows. End mode for everything, really. So, and then once you're on that end mode setting, press clear work and come out of that. Now the cash flow function, a whole different button for that. Okay. Now, what we have is an example about a project, generally corporate finance topics and, project appraisal, we need to know about cash flow valuation. So here it says, let's imagine you have uneven cash flows. So you can't use the payment button. You want to value the following cash flows using a discount rate of 6%. Now what we can see, guys, is there's a cost and then there's some revenue streams, so for 4 years. Now, first of all, we're going to press the cash flow button, CF, just below enter. And second clear work enables us then to clear out all the number that might be there. So second button then, guys, the bottom left-hand corner, clear work. And you'll see that that's wiped clean. In case it wasn't already, right? Now, what you have on screen, guys, should be cash flow at time 0. It wants to know what's the original cash flow. And you can see that's a cost of 1,000. So guys, put 1,000 in, but make it a negative by pressing plus minus, then press enter. Okay, so that's locked in by pressing enter. Then press the down arrow once. Cash flow 1 should be, as we can see, 700 positive. Enter that. Now press the down arrow once and you'll say, the frequency of the first cash flow is 1. By default, the calculator assumes that the first payment of 700 does not repeat itself in the second year, and it doesn't because it becomes 800. So yes, that's true. I'll leave that alone. Cash flow 2 is 800, as we can see. Put that in, enter. And it doesn't repeat in year 3, so just down arrow twice, please. Frequency of payment 2 is just once. And finally, cash flow 3 is 900, but that repeats in year 4. So you've got two choices. Either you can say cash flow 3 is 900, enter, and then go to cash flow 4 and enter that at 900, or you can do this. Cash flow 3 is 900, down arrow, frequency of cash flow 3 is equal to, and then we say it's equal to 2. And we enter that, that then repeats that. Obviously, that's useful if you have like lots of repeated cash flows. It would save you so much time being able to do that. But once you've done that, I want you to press the NPV button, which is, of course, guys, the net present value. So discounting all of the cash flows at the rate of, it says what rate, and we have to put 6 because that's the discount rate. And press enter, guys, after you've done that. Now you press either the up or the down arrow, it doesn't matter, but press one of those arrows and it goes back to the NPV and you say NPV compute. Compute, basically just press the compute button and it should give you the answer. Now what you've done is say what is the net of all the cash flows at the discount rate. Is it positive? Is it negative? What is it? Well, what have you got? Have you got 1,840? Let's say roughly. That is a positive number for a start, which means, of course, value added for the shareholders. And it can be compared to other projects where the higher the better. But we have assumed a discount rate of 6%. Maybe another question would be, is how high could my discount rate be and I still have a project which adds some value? Well, that's actually like a break-even discount rate, isn't it? And that's called the IRR, isn't it? IRR, the internal rate of return. This is the best thing about this. Just press the IRR button and press CPT. And the calculator does an iteration to find the unique discount rate, which makes the NPV 0, so you break even. What have you got there? 68.24? Look at that. So in other words, the cost of capital would have to be around 70% before this project with its cash flows becomes not worthwhile. Obviously, the higher the IRR, the better for a project. But can you rank by IRR? We'll say no, because it is unique to the cash flows it comes from. So you can't really compare one IRR to another. But certainly the higher the IRR, certainly I'm happier with that, in isolation anyway. So there you go, guys. That's how you get the NPV and IRR numbers there. You can see a little bit of narrative or slide on that, but we've got the numbers. And there's an example of a project here, certainly saying you don't have to do that now. We've already done an example of it, but just remember and you then need to input the cost of capital, whatever rate you're given, and solve for the MPV. And then the IRR basically is an afterthought, because once you've got the cash flows in, you can just press IRR and compute, and that will then give you the IRR. So you've got this presentation. You can just see and try these numbers yourself. We've got projects A and B, but that's really for you to do. Same method as we've just done. Now, standard deviation is a measure of risk, isn't it? It's a measure of how much volatility there is in a stock price or an asset class price. Usually in terms of a normal distribution, you're saying how much deviation is there from the mean, and that will help us determine like a confidence interval of outcomes. But how do you calculate it? Well, the good thing about this calculator is it does it for you by using a statistical function. So first of all, guys, here's some numbers for you. 30, 12, 25. These are some data points. And I want you to enter this data by pressing the second button and the number 7, which is the data function. Okay, so second 7. Now, it will say, okay, if you have used, guys, this before, the way to clear it is by pressing second clear work. Please do that if you indeed just do that anyway. Just make sure. Second clear work. And then it says, what entry do you want for the first one? X1 equals. And we want 30. That's the first number going in. Press enter. Down arrow once will then say Y01, Y1 is equal to 1. That's actually like a frequency. Think of it like a frequency. So there's one 30 item. Down arrow again. X2, 12. Enter. Right? 12. Next number. Again, 2 arrows because the frequency is not being amended. X3 is 25. X4 should be 20. X5 should be 23. Down arrow, guys, after 2 down arrows basically after every entry, not 1, 2 down arrows. Please don't enter anything under the Y entries. The Y entries should all say 1. Okay, the Y entry should all say 1. However, once you've done that, now all you do is you press the second button and the number 8. The second and number 8. That actually brings up the stats function. Okay? So, guys, once you've done the numbers and you're pressing second number 8, you go to stats, and the only thing you should see on screen is one variable mode, which is 1-V, one variable mode. Level 1, that is the only, Level 1 CFA Program exam, that's the only one that you'll be using, okay? One variable. If it's not one variable mode, I want you to press the second enter button until it says that. You'll go through a range of other functions like linear regression and exponential function and so what. Don't need any of them. Just keep going until you get to one variable. Stop when you do. Stop when you do. Once you've got it, press the down arrow. That should give you access now to a range of stats, such as N. N equals. Now I get 5. Do you get that? Because there are 5 items here. So N is 5. Down arrow again should give you X bar, which is, as I'm sure you know, the arithmetic mean. That should come to 22. Down arrow again. SX, guys, is the sample standard deviation. Now, usually in stats we want to work that out. This is giving it to you directly. Sample standard deviation is 6.67. What is variance? Variance is standard deviation squared. So if you want to work out variance, you just press the X squared button right now. That's going to give you S squared. Want to just check that? S squared. Press the X squared button and that should be 44.5. Is that okay? That's the variance. Press the down arrow again. You're going to get sigma, which is the population deviation. How about that? 5.97. And if you want population variance, square your answer, and that should come to, I believe, 35.6. So the way that this works is it gives you the deviation directly. Then you have to square the number. Now, maybe thinking, okay, and how would I be able to maybe do something if it was like probability weighted or something? Can we do that? Yes, we can. I'll show you how in a second. This just reminds us how you basically go through the different bits. You can get all of these things from pressing second stat. Yeah? Always work in one variable mode, guys. You will never use any other setting at this exam. Now, one thing that I see is just talking about probability weighted standard deviation, which can be quite tricky. Because you're having to give, of course, an estimate of deviation based upon outcomes of some kind of scenario. The scenarios can be multiple scenarios, and we say this: there is a manual way of doing it, and that's quite tricky. For example, you've got here an example: a stock market results in different outcomes based upon the state of the oil market. So the results of the oil market can be bad, okay, and good, and the returns are corresponding to that. Yeah? The probabilities, 20% of a bad outcome, 30% of an okay outcome, and 50% for a good outcome. If you want to work out the expected return, all you would do is multiply your probabilities by the individual returns and sum them together, which is exactly what this column does here. So I should say actually this way around, okay? If we're doing multiplying, we're going to get these numbers, and then we sum those numbers up, and yes, we should get this answer. Okay, and I agree that's not really that tough. But you can see it's not a simple average of 3, 8, and 14. That would just be add the 3 and divide by 3. This is a weighted average. But how do you do then a probability weighted deviation from the probability weighted average? How do you do that? Well, the first thing you do is you say, let's take the deviation. The deviation from the average is R minus ER. So 3 minus 10. Or we've got 8. Yes, so 8 minus 10. Or we've got 14 minus 10. Where these numbers come from. And as you know, standard deviation is about a squared. You square the term first, and then you root finally the answer. So our next column is square deviation. Multiplied by the probability, because now we have to give it a weighting. This is how we do it. Manually, if you're doing it, so for example, minus 7 squared, give it a weighting of 20%. Or we've got minus 2 squared, give it a weighting of 30%. Or give it 8 squared. 4 squared, sorry, and give it a weighting of 50%. Yeah. Now you could do that. I mean, it's not too bad, but if you solve for that and sum that up together, you will get apparently 19, which is variance. Probability weighted variance. And if you take the root of that answer, you'll get probability weighted standard deviation. Now you might check that out and think, well, I could really do this in the program exam. That'd be so time consuming. Well, no, you don't have to. So I'm going to show you as a sort of final check how you can shortcut that. Press second data again, guys. Yeah, press second data. And for the entries, what I want you to do is your basically X1 entries are going to be the data points, and your Y entries are going to be the probability. So as it says here anyway, in a bad outcome, the return to the stock would be 3. So you want X1 equals 3 and enter. Then down arrow once, and the Y entry should be the probability of a bad outcome, which was 20%. Notice I'm entering the numbers as percentages, not as decimals, yeah? Down arrow. X2, what was it? The return would be 8%. Down arrow once, Y2, the probability of that is 30. And finally, X3 is set to 14, and therefore Y3 is 50. Notice, guys, that in one variable mode, these are frequencies. Your Y entries are frequencies. Okay, well, have you got all that in? 6 entries there. And once you've done that, you do the same thing that you always do. You press the second and the start button number 8. So let's press that. And still in one variable mode, yes. The down arrow, guys, should show there are 100 entries. Why 100? Because you've said there were 20 of these and 30 of those and 50 of these, so 100. That's basically probability at 100%. Down arrow again, guys, should give you X bar, and that hopefully does match what we remember. That's basically E of our expected return is 10. And down arrow, not once, but twice. Why not once? We need to get, guys, to sigma X. We want to ignore Sx. Why is that? Because when you work out standard deviation for a probability weighted outcome, you've covered all eventualities. There's no concept of taking a sample then. Therefore, it would be a trap, guys, if you were to go with sample. Right? Always go population. And of course, you can see that number hopefully matches what we had calculated ourselves. Let's double check. 4.36, yes, we did it manually, so yeah, 4.36 is the right number. And if you square that, of course, you'll get 9. You get the variance. Now, guys, there's our sort of presentation for you this evening. I hope that it's a small presentation, but I hope you found it somewhat useful in case there's something you hadn't seen before. I recommend that you practice with this calculator as much as possible. It will save you valuable time. And if you're interested in any of the things that we have, any products or any sort of courses that we run at Fitch Learning, here are some details for you in various regions around the world. You can get in touch with the name, the email address, of course, contact telephone number as well. Please do get in touch if you feel free, if you need to. Anything you want to know. The main thing, though, is good luck for the CFA program exam, and get the best out of your calculator is a key to success. Thank you for joining me this evening, everybody. If there's no other questions, then I'll say bye for now.